I'm Agni Jaiprakash. People call me AJ. I'm an alumni of the Harvard Business School, a former Asian gold medalist in the sport of swimming. Represented the country for 10 years, 4 years as a swimming team captain. And post my illustrious swimming career, I moved to the US and worked under Madam Lakshmi Puri for a year and a half, and of course under Ravi Kakra sir as well at UN Women. And it was during that time when I had contributed to a lot of case studies and impact reports on emerging technologies and how they could disrupt multi-billion-dollar segments and sectors in developing countries like India, Southeast Asia, Africa, and South America. And that is how my love for drones started, because most people have this common misconception that drones could be used either for videography in events, marriages, sporting events, etc., or the other end of the spectrum in defense for probably disastrous purposes. However, I felt that there is a huge bandwidth of several different use cases and applications that drones could be used for, especially in agriculture, mining, infrastructure, project monitoring, Industry 4.0, and several ways and means where we could, plug in drones with probes, sensors, magnetometers, high-powered sprayers, and cameras, and we would be creating immense value for a variety of sectors. And what even though I founded Garuda Aerospace in 2016, we had tremendous interest from various government departments and industries. We were the first company to develop a human and animal conflict-free drone, where we'd fit in the drone with a loudspeaker and ensure that whenever there was an elephant that would come into the village, we would drive it back away without any form of physical contact by just playing high and low frequency noises. And we also developed a seeding drone, which would be able to help in afforestation, which would shoot pellets of seeds into the ground, and so that there is a bare minimum amount of penetration to enhance and increase the possibilities of that seed actually germinating into and developing into a tree. But what we saw in 2020 and 21 was a forcible adoption of automation and drone-based technology, because obviously during the pandemic, we would the entire world was looking at better ways, more efficient ways, and ways and means to reduce costs, and that's exactly where these drones fit in. Today, Garuda Aerospace is one of India's largest drone manufacturers. We recently unveiled our carbon-neutral drone at Davos. It was a phenomenal experience for me, having the opportunity to share the dais and speak about drones, clean green technologies, how we are able to disrupt several multi-billion-dollar segments, and of course, listen to various different insights on how the entire geopolitical landscape is moving towards India. India is home to, and I'm sure everybody knows this, it's home to the world's largest youth population. Over 52% of our country is under the age of 30. It has tremendous potential, a lot of literacy, and now we are also ensuring that through the progressive policies of our Honorable Prime Minister, we are seeing a lot of digital penetration. A lot more people are having access to technology. A lot more people are having access to internet, and they're getting on the grid. 67% of our country is still in her villages, and that is exactly where Garuda Aerospace has started its disruption. Over the last 2.5 to 3 years, we've been disrupting that space, ensuring that affordable precision drone technologies for spraying growth nutrients and fertilizers onto fields, which is a $3 billion segment, has taken forefront and importance. And seeing that the kind of progress that we made last year in February, the Honorable Prime Minister of the country launched 100 of our drones in 100 different villages. And immediately post which, you would also see that Mahendra Singh Dhoni, who is an ace cricketer as well as a former Indian cricket team captain, became our investor as well as our brand ambassador. And you would see that the government has also ensured that there is a lot of loans, interest which is at 5%, and collateral-free loans, as well as 50 to 70% of subsidies being brought in, PLI schemes being brought in, to ensure widespread adoption of such technology, and the affordability becomes universal throughout the country. And that is what I have, of course, with the guidance of Ravi sir, sir, has been, and of course now we've had a growing team of about 250 people. We are currently the most valuable drone startup in India. We manufacture, we provide services, and we also ensure that all the data that is being collected from the fields, because India is such a diverse country, all that data is going back into processing, and it is repackaged and going back to the farmers in the form of agri advisory services in terms of how they could enhance their food crop productivity and yield. So this is not only creating a agricultural revolution, but it is also enhancing their livelihood. It is creating a youth revolution because there are a lot of jobs that we are creating. And I believe that the game of drones has just begun. There are several interesting use cases which I would love to speak about in the future, like particularly where Elon Musk liked our solar panel cleaning drone last year, which led to our pre-series A funding round. But of course, in the interest of time, I'd love to keep this short. Very grateful for the opportunity. But in to summarize, I believe that emerging technologies has a great deal to contribute towards the ESG as well as the carbon neutrality and the sustainable development goals that we all keep very passionately speaking about. But I believe it's time for action. It is time to be the change that we want to see in the dream, in our dream world. And I believe that action speaks louder than words. The biggest takeaway from Davos was the fact that how India dominated Davos. There were so many different pavilions of several states who were there. But the biggest story and the takeaway from there was the Indian startup ecosystem. I learned that India today has over 85,000 startups, and particularly 47% of them are headed by women entrepreneurs. This is a very welcome sign because, we keep talking about women entrepreneurship, women empowerment, and women actually having the opportunities to lead startups is something which is spectacular. Being an Indian, I was so proud of being there and also listening to such progressive policies, ease of business, as well as the entire mentality change that has happened. 20, 30 years back, and I heard several speakers, including Mr. Mehta, who was there, people used to immediately, even when you had to get married, people used to ask, oh, okay, where are you working? And when you talk about startup, about 15 years ago, that was not even in the vocabulary of Indian households. And after which, when we, in the last maybe 4 to 5 years, you have seen India rise in the rankings, and we are home to over 107 unicorn startups. Now, there might be a lot of debate in terms of valuations and such, but when you talk about how the topic of today was about investing in India, how India is, from a global perspective, has become perceived as the largest marketplace in the world and largest democracy in the world, with about 1.4 billion people, customers, people who are ready to work, skilled professional youngsters who are willing to contribute to the ecosystem and the economy, and also contributing to and becoming a taxpayer, which is again fueling the government to take in a lot more of that funds for a lot of developmental activities. We have been participants and helping governments to help in large scale land mapping via the Swamitwa scheme, where we have mapped over 7,000 villages. And the speaker before me had told us that yes, while foreign tech companies are perhaps 20 years ahead of us, but we are very slowly bridging the gap in terms of that divide because of the progressive policies that we made, the opportunities that has been laid out to us, and also that the fact that the Indian startup ecosystem is now today globally placed right behind the US. The ease of doing business, the mindset of not just being part of the startup ecosystem, but also the aspect of taking on credit, taking on equity. Usually the mindset of Indian households used to be family-run businesses. What are you doing? You're running a family business, or you're working for someone. That only used to be the case. But now you're seeing people opening up to lines of credit. People in the past used to feel that Indians always used to save, and people in the US always used to spend on credit, borrow more. And there was a social stigma against borrowing. People used to look down upon people who took out loans in India. It was always about how much money do you save, and not how much credit that you take and use it for a startup or a business, or for a better spending, and that ultimately both micro and macroeconomic levels impacts Indian economy. And when we have a goal of not just becoming a $5 trillion economy, but to look forward towards India at 100 at 2047 and reaching a $30 trillion economy, we need to think differently. We need to think bold, lose the inhibitions that has limited us in the past. But that doesn't mean that we should lose the values and morals and ideas that has made us who we are. Today, the spiritual guru spoke a very beautiful point. It is about minimal consumption. And I'd like to quote Gandhi ji here. The world has enough for everyone's need, but it does not have enough for one man's greed. So I believe that yes, minimal consumption is required, and I believe technology and emerging technologies has the solution for ensuring that everyone leads a very sustainable lifestyle. People are not utilizing carbon, emitting fossil fuel technology. People are moving towards EVs and a clean form of energy. People are consuming only whatever they need to consume in order to live a healthy lifestyle. There are many and different ways for us to address all the problems that we face, because yes, ultimately we are creating the AIs, we are creating the MLs, we are ultimately, in my opinion, God's favorite creation. And that is why we have a very important responsibility on planet Earth to ensure that we leave planet Earth in a better shape than when it was when we first entered. And that is not just in the hands of government. It is not just in the hands of policymakers and not just in others. It's in each and every one of us, in our families. It starts with you. It starts with us, starts at home. Before we start tweeting out and lecturing people on how to consume, on how to lead a life or contribute towards a global economic or political or environmental change, we need to start being the change. And I believe that when we start looking inwards rather than outwards, you will find a lot more solutions. And with that, thank you so much, Ravi sir, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you so much for all the listeners for patiently tuning in for this wonderful Spaces session. It's almost 90 minutes, and I'm so happy that we've had insightful conversations, views, opinions. And the most beautiful thing is that we can all talk about this and ensure that there is a lot of takeaways and we can get right back into making this world a much, much better place. Thank you.